Another long night. Paperwork's done, streets are quiet, and the only thing left to do is pour a drink, light one up, and let the memories do the talking. These old cases, they don't rest easy, and neither do I. But maybe you can. So go on, lie back, close your eyes, and let me tell you one from the files. Something strange. And if this story keeps you company tonight, or gives you something to think about in the dark, go ahead and tap that like button. It helps more people find their way to this little corner of the night. The Pale Man. The city doesn't sleep. It tosses and turns, groaning through neon dreams and alleyway nightmares. You learn quickly. If something glows too bright in this town, it's probably hiding something even darker behind it. That's how I found myself knee-deep in trash and blood off 11th and Maple, the stench of rot soaked into my coat, watching a uniform hurl his lunch into a gutter. Her name was Evelyn Marsh, 32, yoga teacher, liked herbal tea and true crime podcasts, according to the neighbors. She didn't belong here, face first in a pool of last night's rain, her skin the color of spoiled milk. They all had that same look, like someone had drained the life out of them slowly, methodically, like it meant something. Third victim this month, and just like the last two, Evelyn was found with her eyes wide open, pupils dilated to hell, like she saw something before she died. Something that didn't make sense. Her lips were blue. Her fingers snapped backwards at unnatural angles, and right next to her body, just like the others, was the same grotesque calling card. Crayon on paper, torn and smeared. It showed a tall man, pale, distorted, smiling. Sometimes he had yellow eyes, sometimes red, but always smiling. I took it and slipped it into my coat. Back at the precinct, I laid the sketches side by side. 3 dead women, 3 different parts of the city, and 3 nearly identical drawings. I'd seen some sick things in my time. People carving scripture into flesh, a guy who thought he could summon angels with his bones. But this was different. The chief didn't want to hear it. Said it was probably some freak getting his kicks or a prank gone wrong. But my gut told me different. Something about the symmetry of the bodies, the timing of the murders, and the smell. God, the smell. It clung to me after every scene, like old breath in a sealed room. That night, I went over the photos again. Each victim had been seen with a man days before their deaths. Tall, sickly looking, always wearing gloves. Sometimes he had a limp, always carried a worn leather satchel. No one could remember his face. Just that he was off, wrong in a way no one could put their finger on. I lit a cigarette and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed like they knew something I didn't. I needed a break, and like most bad decisions, it came in the form of a whisper from a contact who owed me one too many favors. Try the old boarding house on Ivy. Room 6. Someone there's been asking about the drawings. I didn't wait for backup. I didn't even grab my badge. Just my coat, my piece, and that folder full of horror scrawled in crayon. The boarding house looked like it had been swallowed by the city and spit back out. Windows fogged, door cracked. Smelled like mildew and mothballs. I knocked once. No answer. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Room 6 was at the end of the hall, past faded wallpaper and a cracked mirror that didn't reflect right. I raised my gun. The door creaked open. Empty. Except for the drawings. Hundreds of them. Pinned to the walls, taped to the ceiling. All of the Pale Man. always smiling. In the center of the room was a chair, and tied to that chair, barely breathing, was someone I recognized. Detective Graves, retired 6 years ago, found dead 2 months back, except he was here, pale as a ghost and shaking like a junkie in withdrawal. He looked up at me, whispered one word, "Run." Then he started screaming. I never saw the thing that pulled him back into the dark, but I heard it smile. And that smile wasn't just in my ears. It was in my bones. Later, I watched the tape I'd set up in my coat pocket just in case. The footage jittered, flickered, then went black for a full 5 seconds. When it returned, room 6 was empty. No graves, no drawings. Just me, staring at a wall like it owed me money. The lab said the tape wasn't damaged, said the static wasn't static at all, but a low hum. So low it couldn't be picked up by standard microphones. Subsonic, but enough to make dogs bark 3 blocks over. Graves was gone, and the city moved on like it always does. But I didn't, because that smile, it followed me home. The nights after Graves vanished got longer. My dreams shrunk into black and white still frames. Always the same. The pale man behind me, smiling, as I stood frozen in some reflection. A mirror, a window, a puddle. I never saw him move, but he always got closer, like the image zoomed in on its own. I stopped sleeping, spent every night combing through Graves's old case files. Before he retired, he'd investigated a string of disappearances tied to a halfway house that burned down in '92. Witnesses described a volunteer with chalk-white skin and strange eyes. He wasn't on any payroll, never listed on rosters. But 5 residents went missing during his stint there. All of them mentally ill. All of them prone to talking to people who weren't there. Sounded familiar. I tracked down one of the survivors, a man named Kenny Flores. He'd been in and out of institutions for most of his life, but the day I met him, he was clear-eyed and jumpy, like a rabbit in a lion's den. He refused to sit near any reflective surface and kept a shard of broken glass on him like a lucky charm. "You don't understand," he said. "He's not a man. He's the thing inside the man. It wears him like a suit, like a Halloween costume made out of skin. And he hates being seen. Not directly. That's why the mirrors, that's why the reflections." I asked him what he meant. He stared at the glass in his hand and whispered, "Because he's made of lies. The truth breaks him." The next day, Kenny was found dead in his room. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Just his body folded into itself, like a puppet with its strings cut. Every mirror in the apartment was shattered, and taped to the bathroom wall was a new drawing. The pale man again, but this time, he wasn't smiling. I showed it to the chief. She told me to take a vacation. Said I was too deep, not thinking straight. Maybe she was right. Maybe the city had finally sunk its teeth in too far, but I couldn't let it go. I started noticing the signs everywhere. A woman at the diner sketching faces into her napkin. A street preacher raving about hollow men and faceless devils. A girl in the subway drawing spirals on her arm in pen, muttering, "He's coming, he's coming." I went back to room 6. Nothing left but peeling paint and a draft that whistled like teeth grinding. But in the corner of the floorboards, I found something wedged between the cracks. A brass key, small and old, with the number 314 etched into it. It didn't belong to the boarding house. Took it to every hotel and storage unit I could think of. Finally found the match at an abandoned mental facility on the edge of town. Closed in 1989. The lock hadn't been changed. Inside was a single room. Bare walls, save for one long mirror bolted above an old examination table. Sitting on the table was a folder, yellowed, brittle. Inside, photographs of patients, sketches in red pencil, charts with phrases like visual rupture, mirrored trauma, and entity containment. At the bottom was a photo, not of the pale man, of me, taken outside my apartment 3 nights ago. That's when I heard the laughter. Not loud, not manic, just soft, like someone telling a joke under their breath. And in the mirror, I saw it. Not the pale man exactly, but a version of me, gray-skinned, eyes too wide, smile too still, just standing there, watching. I turned, nothing. I looked back. The mirror was empty, but my reflection didn't come back. And that's when I knew, whatever the pale man was, he wasn't just hunting me. He was already inside. He was waiting. They say sleep is the cousin of death, but in my case, sleep had become a roommate, an unwelcome one. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw room 6, the drawings, the chair, that smile. I started seeing the pale man in reflections, in puddles, in storefront windows, in the dark sheen of my coffee. Never there when I looked again, but just long enough to feel my blood turn to sleet. My therapist said it was trauma. My bartender said it was whiskey, but I knew better. Some things claw their way into your life and rot it from the inside out. The 4th victim turned up on a playground, middle of the night, under the rusted jungle gym. Same pale skin, same cracked fingers. This time, she'd carved something into the dirt before she died. 4 letters, H-O-M-E. She was a teacher, single, lived alone, just like the others. A neighbor remembered a man dropping her off a few nights prior. Said he wore a long coat and smelled like sulfur. That was new. That was something. I paid a visit to the morgue. Bodies don't lie, even when the living do. Her lungs were full of air, which meant she was alive when she was dragged out into that cold. Her blood had crystallized, not frozen, crystallized, like sugar left in a wet glass. The coroner shrugged. "Never seen anything like it," he said. He looked scared. I stopped by the precinct to pull some old files, cases that were never solved but had notes about odd drawings, strange men, sulfur smells. There weren't many, but they all dated back decades. And in the oldest file, from 1954, I found a black and white photo, a group of missing persons, 9 faces, all smiling, standing outside a school, but it was the 10th figure that grabbed my lungs and didn't let go. In the corner, barely visible, the pale man, watching. Same height, same expression, same smile. But that photo was taken over 70 years ago. I made a copy and took it home. That night, my hallway light flickered. The air tasted like copper. I slept with my gun on the nightstand. But deep down, I knew a bullet wouldn't stop whatever this was. The pale man wasn't just a killer. He was a presence, a sickness, a story whispered too many times by too many people until it grew roots in the walls. By morning, I had one lead left. A woman named Liza Kroll. Psychic. Fraud. Known to work with the cops when a case got weird. I'd never trusted her. Still don't. But when you're drowning, you grab whatever hand's reaching, even if it's cold. Liza lived above a pawn shop off Delaney. Smelled like incense and dead flowers. She didn't look surprised to see me. "He's getting closer," she said before I spoke. "What is he?" She sat, lit a cigarette with a shaking hand. Not a man, not a ghost. He's what happens when a place is broken over and over, when pain becomes ritual. How do I stop him? You don't. You survive him. Maybe? She handed me something. A drawing, but not a child's this time. It was old parchment, edges burned. The pale man again, but this time he wasn't smiling, just staring. Behind him a door, black and bricked shut. You'll find it, she whispered. You have to, before he does. I left her there, knowing I'd never see her again. Part of me hoped I wouldn't. Back home, I checked my coat pocket. The drawing was gone. In its place was a crayon sketch of me. Eyes wide, mouth open, smiling. I stopped sleeping. The days blurred. The city moaned and crackled like a dying thing, its streets twisted with shadows that bent the wrong way. I started seeing him, not just in the corner of my vision, but head on buses, in alleys, reflected in windows I hadn't walked past yet. He'd vanish the moment I blinked, like a bad memory I couldn't quite bury. The chief pulled me off the case, said I was unraveling. Maybe I was. My hands trembled when I lit my smokes. My coffee tasted like dirt. And the drawings, they started showing up in my apartment. Slipped under the door, folded into my coat pocket. One was taped to my mirror with a single word written in red ink. Soon. I tried burning them, but the ashes reformed. I watched one curl and blacken in the sink, only to find it whole again in my mailbox an hour later. I knew what I had to do. There was one place I hadn't gone yet. A building condemned for years. Squat, gray, the kind of place kids dared each other to break into on a drunk Friday night. Every rumor about it led back to the same story. A man who lived in the basement. Pale, smiling, watching. I went alone. I didn't tell anyone. Wouldn't have mattered if I had. The lock gave way with a kick. The air was thick, like stepping into a wet sponge. Mold bloomed along the walls in spirals. Something skittered past my foot. I didn't flinch. The basement stairs groaned with every step. There was no light down there, just a buzzing that throbbed behind my eyes. And in the center of the room, a chair, and him, the pale man. He was taller than I remembered from the sketches. His skin wasn't skin at all. It looked like stretched wax over something that shouldn't move the way it did. His teeth were too many. His eyes were wrong. Not yellow, not red. Just deep and endless, like looking down a well that went past hell. He didn't move, just stared. I raised my gun. He laughed. Not out loud. In my head. The kind of laugh that makes you question every good thing you've ever known. You see me now, he said, though his mouth didn't move. You've always seen me. I've just been waiting for you to believe. I fired. The sound echoed like thunder. He didn't flinch. The bullet passed through him like mist, hitting the wall behind with a crack that felt like the end of the world. Bullets are for flesh, he whispered. I am memory. I am rot. I am the smile beneath your skin. I turned to run, but the door was gone. The stairs were gone. Just a wall where they used to be. He stepped forward. The floor didn't creak beneath him. You brought me back, he said. You let me in. Every drawing, every whisper, every glance, it fed me. And now, you'll carry me. My mouth moved, but no sound came out. My body froze, locked in place like my blood had turned to stone. He touched my chest with one long, cold finger, and I saw it all. His face, my face, merged, twisted. I woke up in my bed. No wounds, no bruises, No bullet holes in my wall, just a sketch pinned to my ceiling. A child's crayon drawing of me, smiling, pale, standing over a faceless corpse. The phone rang. "Detective, we've got another one." I closed my eyes. "Send me the address, because the city doesn't sleep. And now neither do I."